if we're looking for trying to get this kind of sound where you have a really obviously large cranked amplifier sound on stage, that's a big challenge for people at home.
It is, because, and people have tried to get around it by getting like a little tube combo. Like there's this big fashion.
Guitarists play in a lot of different ways, and on stage is only one of them. Almost all guitar amps are based on a design that's perfect for the stage. The only thing that changes is the size and loudness. Because the way you play when you are off stage isn't simply a smaller version of how you play on stage, why would you use an amp that's just a small version of your stage amp in order to get what you need? THR from Yamaha is the first amp that's truly designed for how you play when you are not on stage.
So what we're looking at is the whole, one of the concepts is to take a large-scale stage amplifier, that rich harmonic tone, and put it into something where guitar players are playing probably most of their time, which is at home in their office or in their den. So I understand that concept, but what else does the THR bring to the party that's something new?
Well, it was totally designed to be an amp that suits how you play when you're playing off stage. So it's about having that great tone and the response of a big amp, but at a really quiet, practical level. It's about having something that fits in with great stereo playback, so you can play along to tracks or YouTube. It can fit into a computer recording setup really, really smoothly with no hassle. And physically, it works in the environment you want to play it in. It's not just a great big black Tolex box that's going to sit on the floor.
Okay, so again, you're telling me designed for home use, which is perfect for me. It's where I'm actually doing most of my stuff. I can sit there in my den or in my garage, play along with some songs. You mentioned computer use, so I can jam along to some tracks or maybe learn some licks off of some training software, maybe something along those lines. Yeah. And the one thing that's important to me, obviously, is if I'm going to play this, it has to have some inspiring and very cool classic tones as well as maybe some more modern things. So how do we approach that in this format?
Well, what we've got is basically amp modeling done using Yamaha's VCM technology. VCM stands for virtual circuitry modeling. And what that actually does is, rather than just modeling the sound of an amp, it models all of the components in an amp. So this thing actually works like a big, fully cranked tube amp. And just to give you a little idea of that, if you go on this sound, this is just on the crunch sound, with the master volume on about half, gives you a sound like this. Sounds pretty good. If I now crank the master up to full, what's happened there is, yeah, it's got louder, because that's what happens when you turn the master up, but the tone's changed as well. It's a bit more compressed, there's a bit more low end, there's a bit more gain. Because this thing actually responds and reacts like a real amp, you get the inspirational tones, you get the sound, you get the response and the feeling of all the amps that are in there.
I could hear it easily as you're turning it up. It just kind of fills up, and the bottom kind of tightened up a little bit. Sounds like it's all compressing and getting a little more meaty in there. And it sounds great from here. But let's go through some of the tones if you have the time. I mean, to look through and then hear what else we have in the box.
Sure. I mean, one of the things you've got is you've got a really nice kind of American clean tone. So just a little bit of gain and breakup. And then through to like a British kind of medium gain crunchy sound. And a big part of why they sound natural and they sound like real amps is because of that VCM thing and the way that it's responding properly. So you've got the low gain stuff. Obviously we've got some nice high gain stuff as well. So there's a real smooth British sort of high gain sound. And a ultra high gain, kind of modern, crushing sort of American high gain sound. All the bases pretty much are covered in there.
Yeah, it's pretty convincing. I heard on a couple of those presets you did some what sound like spring reverb and some delay effect and some other things. What do we have effects-wise?
There's a couple of different effects processes in it. The first one is basically modeling some vintage stomp boxes. So you've got a few different effects in there. The first is a really nice kind of open shimmery chorus.
Even sitting right here, I can tell it's a nice wide stereo effect. It's not.
Yeah, and it's just a really nice, really usable kind of effect. Got a good sounding flanger in there. Really, really, really good phaser. And a tremolo actually that's really usable, really cool sound.
It's really deep and swampy vibe that has.
Yeah, again, it's just all about being usable, about stuff that you can actually get great sounds from. So that's the first effects processor. The second one looks after all your time-based effects. So you've got delays, reverbs, hall reverb, spring reverb. And because we've got the Yamaha technology from things like SPX processors and our big digital consoles, you've got great reverb sounds.
Wow, that's cool. What are in your discussions here? We've heard about the tones and the different sounds just now, but what kind of other applications are for guitarists? I look and I see an aux input and a USB connection on the back, and obviously the guitar input. What do we have?
Well, a big part of how people play when they're not playing on stage is along to something else. So maybe that's YouTube or iTunes or just some other kind of track. So one of the first things we wanted to do with this was make it possible to have really high quality stereo playback through the amp. So we worked with Yamaha's hi-fi division to get a great stereo sound. And actually we even developed something new called extended stereo technology, which gives us a much, much wider, bigger, deeper stereo sound than you'd normally expect to get from such a little box. So the stereo sound's good enough that really you could use it as a hi-fi if you wanted to. And the advantage of having the guitar and the stereo track come from the same place is really big. I mean, if you've ever tried to play using, your stereo track coming from in front of you and your guitar from over there, it's just really hard. You're kind of struggling to balance everything. It's really difficult to get into it. You've got that all coming from one box with this. And a choice of ways of getting the track into it. You've either got an analog auxiliary in, so it can go in from any music player or smartphone, basically any audio source, or you've got the USB 2 connection on the back, which is giving us USB connectivity to and from the computer, no problem.
Oh, okay, so you're saying to and from over USB. Obviously, we're playing iTunes or YouTube or anything we want, using it as a home stereo system or a practice partner. Now, what's coming out of this?
Well, it works as a recording interface because it's another of the uses that people want to do with their amp at home. So this is a real simple recording interface. And because you're monitoring the hardware in there and all of the processing is taken care of in the amp, there's no overhead on your computer, so it's much more stable. And all it is, basically, with one USB cable, you can take the 2 channels back from your computer through this, but you're also sending 4 channels of recording to the computer. And it comes with Cubase, Steinberg's recording software, so you can record with it straight out of the box.
Oh, that's cool. So we get the software in the box, but you mentioned something interesting, 4 channels out. Now, for me, I'm used to thinking, hey, guitar is mono. I just need 1 channel. Why are we doing 4 channels out?
Well, the first thing is that all the effects are stereo. Okay. So it's 2 stereo pairs. But what you actually have is one of the stereo pairs is the modeled amp sounds with the speaker simulators and the effects. The other stereo pair is a completely clean DI from the guitar.
Huh. Now, why would we want just to do both at the same time? I'm basically doing the sound that I just wanted to record, and then now I have a copy of it that's completely clean.
Well, it doesn't make a lot of sense on the surface, but actually it's the way a lot of pro studios record now. And it gives you a couple of really important options. The first is that if you wanted to put it back through another amp or another model at a later date to get a different tone, you can do. The second is it's much easier for editing. If you play a solo and you need to edit a few fluff notes out of it, trying to find that section with an amped guitar sound is really difficult because the waveform is really compressed and just like one solid block. Right. With a clean DI'd sound, you can see every transient and every note, miles easier for editing. So it's something that takes no effort but makes the recording process way more flexible.
I never thought of that. Okay, that's pretty interesting. So we have 4 channels out, 2 channels back from the computer. And from that, we're looking at computer interface bidirectionally. We have all of these cool amp models and effects built in. We have headphone outputs so you can practice by yourself and do all these things. We're basically taking all of these great guitar concepts and sticking them into a very convenient and portable package, which kind of reminds me or makes me think of the paradigm we've seen with computers. It's fairly similar to what we're doing now with the guitar amp. We had big towers, and then we went to laptops or something more portable, but with some punch to it, and now a very convenient package. So it seems quite like that was part of the design. Is that really
totally
in the goal?
I mean, we looked at the amp market and saw that there's loads of amps that fill that tower or laptop sector, which is the stacks and even like a 50 watt 112 tube combo is kind of that big amp thing. But what there wasn't was anything that does what a tablet computer does, which is just give you the creativity and the flexibility with none of the hassle, none of the stuff you don't need. Just something that's really easy to use, really portable, really good fun. I mean, this can be used anywhere. It's the couch, the lounge, the den, the pool. I mean, it runs on batteries for 6 hours. You've got all that stuff now with computing, with your tablet computer. Now you've got it with an amp.
Play us on out, Junior.